Dram's irises expanded like dinner plates under the ensorcelment of his eagle's sight spell, revealing the fell ritual in the valley below. 4 individuals dressed in dark, rust-red hooded robes surrounded the stone altar. Each held a strange device, made from what seemed to be a mixture of bones, flesh, and metals. Each device matching the curves of a humanoid extremity. Each cloaked figure stooped down towards the aged, graying man laying upon the altar, placing each of their devices on an extremity belonging to the man. Dram watched intensely as each hooded figure placed their hands on the edges of the altar, which sank down like a great switch. As they stepped back, several mechanical appendages, topped with weird, strange, and wicked implements, found their way to the man's arms and legs. Dram fought his urge to look away from the carnage as the mechanical devices tore, cut, and hacked, surgically removing the man's arms and legs as he screamed like a living lamb on a particularly sadistic butcher's cutting board. Dram knew he needed to continue watching if he wanted his ally Edric, war priest of Paragon, the god of dwarvenkind, to successfully identify the signifying blasphemous markings: a black 8-pointed star, a bright blue shattered square, and a green spiral upon the robes of the cultish-looking figures below. Dram wanted to stop them here and now, but to intervene would ruin the carefully laid plan concocted by his team's diminutive scout Raleigh, which he was sure would work. He only hoped Mithronar, his team's elven swordsman, could keep his beliefs delivering merciless justice as swiftly as possible, held off at least until they could successfully track them back to their lair. The mechanical arms soon replaced the graying man's removed limbs with the strange but familiar-looking devices with a guise of humanoid arms and legs made from flesh and steel. With the replacements completed, the hooded figures quickly helped the man off the altar. He stood up, respectfully bowed to the 4. Then they all began making their way back to the safe house, making a few hand signs in front of his eyes, where he knew Edric would be watching through them with his pool of shared sight. He signaled him to prepare and rendezvousing at the cultist's lair entrance. With a complicated set of hand gestures, a shimmer covered Dram as he became invisible and moved stealthily from his position, keeping an eye on the cultist as he silently followed them. Chaositech, a third-party sourcebook written by Monty Cook, published in 2004 by Malhavoc Press through White Wolf's Sword and Sorcery Studios. Chaositech adds a quasi-sci-fi element to Dungeons & Dragons version 3.5 without needing to add traditional science fiction-based technology into a D20 fantasy game. Well, the question is, what is Chaositech? Well, what it isn't is magic, because it isn't created using magic, spells, nor fueled by it. It technically isn't technology either, due to its rejection of conventional science or the laws of physics. Monty Cook describes it as fantasy science rather than science fantasy, with built-in philosophy, religious cults, and dark gods, or rather godlike beings, as a seamless tie-in to an expected fantasy world. What Chaositech actually is a powerful form of enslavement of mortals by chaos. Each Chaositech device grants unique, exotic, and useful powers and abilities, while creating a connection to the world for the dark powers of chaos to slowly mete out their goal, the destruction of reality. This enslavement to entropy, which gives creatures exotic abilities, comes in two distinct types: the bones of steel and the betrayal of flesh. The bones of steel are made from mostly inorganic substances like metals and glass. Many may have a design which mimics an organic form, or have some actual organic parts included in its design. The betrayal of flesh, however, considered a perverse and terrible knowledge, involves the application or alteration of living creatures' bodies, and creates self-sustaining organisms designed with a specific purpose in mind. Many consider those so altered to be abominable monstrosities. Despite all Chaositech's benefits, these objects of chaos carry disastrous consequences with their use. The most ubiquitous, perhaps, is mutation. Creatures in simple propinquity of Chaositech, much less than its actual usage, can result in mutation of both mind and body after extended periods. Moreover, a more insidious payment for the power of Chaositech is the subtle influence exerted over the user from the entities known as the Dark Ones, the Lords of Chaos. With continued use, Chaositech can easily lead the user to enslavement to these dark powers. Chaositech, in essence, is an alternate technology powered by raw chaos, entropy itself. Its powers are fantastical, its visual and tactilness is alien, and its use is certainly damning to mortal beings. Using a power source connected to entropy itself, the use and trade of Chaositech can spread entropy throughout a nation or an entire world given enough time. Given its penchant for fostering the enslavement of minds to their baser instincts of chaos, destruction, and ruin, an alarming number of people may feel the risk is worth wielding the bones of steel and betrayal of flesh due to the powerful and exotic capabilities granted by them, given the amount of cults centered around chaos, which will be discussed at a later time. Chaositech's true masters, the Dark Lords of Chaos, may subtly reveal the secrets of their creation to a few gifted minds, while slowly growing their influence over the mind and any other minds deciding to utilize the Chaositech created, traded, or discovered. All in all, Chaositech has really only one true purpose: to influence weak-willed minds into the ruinous clutches of the Dark Lords of Chaos, in being an unknown accomplice in the destruction of reality. Cowley spoke to the advancing mutants. "Look, I am a servant of chaos, sent here by the high priest, Melvacris." A voice came from the ebon bonds of the darkness around him. "Our master has other plans for you." Cowley strained to see the speaker. He thought he could make out a thin, hawkish man, clad in tattered robes. Some strange tattooed pattern ran across his flesh. The pattern occasionally flashed with what looked like a bluish bolt of electricity. In this bizarre light, Cowley saw a diminutive, misshapen creature of flesh and steel at the man's feet, clinging to the hem of his robes like a child. "Who is your master?" Cowley asked him. "We serve as you do, Cowley. We are all slaves of chaos."